Hello, everyone. Welcome to Creativity Camp. Thank you for joining us. We'll begin shortly after a very short intro. My name is Elizabeth Garcia, and I'll be your host today as we go camping with Lukey McGarry. Today's presenter is Lukey McGarry. You can find him on his website, lukemcgarry.com. He has a shop where he sells amazing art and merch. You can also find him on Instagram as Lukey McGarry. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to Lukey McGarry. Hello, Luke. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I hope everybody else is doing well. How are you, Elizabeth? How's it
I'm
going?
doing great.
Good.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited to have you here and have all our friends in the chat join us as you draw along and explain a little bit about your process. And first of all, for those of us who don't know who you are, please let us know a little bit about you, Luke.
Yeah, all right. Well, there's a very brief description of me up front there, but I'm Luke McGarry, Lukey McGarry on social media. I'm a cartoonist, illustrator, animator. I'm originally from the UK, but I'm based in Los Angeles now. Um, and yeah, my clients, as it said up there, have included Coachella, Mad Magazine, The New Yorker, Vans, Shoes, Visa. I've directed music videos and stuff. And a very brief backstory on that is that I originally went to the Orange County High School of the Arts here in Southern California. Um, and I kind of got exposed to sort of every medium you could possibly, deal with, from photography to fine painting, oil painting, acrylics, all that stuff, animation. But what I really settled into was cartooning, mainly because I couldn't draw, I couldn't do figure drawing, and I didn't have the patience for painting. Um, and through that, I was sort of building my portfolio there. My brother and I started a band called Pop Noir. We're still in this band, but we started it when we were about 15 at high school. And through that, I kind of got involved I was doing all of our show posters and flyers and any of the artwork, t-shirt design and stuff that went into being in a band. And through that, people in the local music scene were noticing my artwork. So I started working for free local music magazines. Through that, some of the writers would, present shows of their own. And there was this one writer whose articles I was always illustrating that went on to found FYF Fest, which was a free punky festival here in Los Angeles. And it got bigger and bigger every year. It eventually got bought out by the people who do Coachella. So at probably 19, I was designing posters for this festival that was, a subsidiary of Coachella, one of the biggest music festivals in the country, if not the world. Um, and through that, it just kind of got more, involved in the art world. So people outside of music would start asking me to illustrate stuff. And yeah, fast forward to directing music videos for bands that are on Epitaph Records, as I mentioned earlier, doing commercials for Visa. Yeah, just all sorts. It's been a kind of crazy journey. My two big goals were to work for Mad Magazine and the New Yorker. I ended up with my own series in Mad Magazine for about 8 issues, which I was writing and illustrating, which is weird because when they reached out to me, I thought it would just be like, a single gag cartoon. Like, yeah, we'd like you to write 5 pages every issue. Um, and yeah, so Mad Magazine, The New Yorker, and I've recently just released my own book. So yeah, it's been a hell of a journey, which we can dig more into as this goes along. But yeah, that's a little bit of a brief rundown on me and who I am and what my career has been so far.
Yeah, I only mentioned your merch because I'm a big fan, but you are incredibly multifaceted. We've met Luke many years ago, and we've worked with him mostly at conventions. He loves stabling. He's always out there. We love doing collaborations with him at Comic Cons, and that's how we met. So I'm
Yeah,
so happy to have you here today. You also created our Creativity Camp hero image. That's the look and feel of this year's Creativity Camp Festival. So I'm really happy that we brought you along also to teach a little class and teach us how you made this little hero work or hero image, and also a little bit of behind the process of your hilarious comic strips and how you come up with your content and how you create it and what tools you use. So
Yeah.
essentially,
Oh,
it's going to be a little rundown of your work process here.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's another thing I forgot to mention. If you're not familiar with my work, is that for probably about 10 years now, I've been doing a daily cartoon on Instagram, which started as a sort of just a practice to kind of force myself to draw every day in between projects. And now it's become an obsession that I have to do a cartoon every day on Instagram, and it's led to all sorts of work and stuff. And yeah, and I've been working with Wacom for a good few years now. Once I went digital, I never looked back. Now I'm afraid to put pen to paper because I love working on Wacom so much. And that's not an ad; that's a genuine opinion.
Thank you, Luke. Well, wonderful. Why don't you go ahead and start showing us what you created for Creativity Camp? Uh, so I reached out to Luke initially because we wanted to have this event during the summer where we invite artists to help us and inspire us stay creative during the summer with some amazing classes and tutorials. And we asked Luke to create the look and feel of this webinar series. I gave him very little direction. I just told him have some fun. It's supposed to be a really fun um, webinar series, mostly for the summertime. So why don't you tell us how you develop this little?
Yeah. Well, so if you haven't seen the final artwork, which I don't know how you got here without seeing it, but that's
I
that's
know.
that's how the artwork ended up. With the final product. So very quickly, I'll show you, or maybe not too quickly, since we've got plenty of time to kill. I'll show you sort of my process in specifically how I created this, and then maybe in a bit, we can all work together with the chat and come up with a cartoon ourselves. But so I work a lot in Sketchbook Pro. I use two programs mainly. It's Sketchbook Pro and Photoshop. Um, and I always start with just a blank canvas and then basically the size of the canvas I'm going to be working to as a gray square. Um, and then I dim that down a little bit. And I'm not going to sketch this all the way through, but this was the initial sketch that I sent to Elizabeth for the Wacom Creativity Camp. Um, as you can see, it's pretty, let me zoom in a little bit. It's pretty, dead on to what ended up being the final artwork. I don't, I work really quickly. I was going to say I don't spend a lot of time on my drafts, but I do to an extent. But if I dragged it out too long, I could have been finished with the final piece. The speed at which I work. So yeah, this was pretty much not a lot of changes, not a lot of adjustments and stuff. I think as you'll be able to see here, let me dim this a little bit. So I sketch it out usually using two colors, blue and purple, just so I can see, what I want to put where. And then I cleaned it up a little bit, made them a bit tighter, a bit more finalized. Yeah, as you can see, they're a bit more recognizable as to how they ended up looking. So again, just, penciling stuff out in Sketchbook. I
Have
added,
you always, Luke, have you always preferred Sketchbook Pro? Has that always been your go-to? And
yeah,
why
so
do you prefer this one?
I've tried every other one of the programs. I don't like drawing directly in Photoshop, but I'm always in awe of people that manage to. But I don't really like the kind of the brush technique, or yeah, the brush interface in Photoshop for drawing. I think Sketchbook, as somebody that started out on pen and paper, and was sort of wary of the digital transition, to be honest. Because I always like to feel paper in my hand. I like the way the pencil feels going across. Sketchbook was the most natural program I came across. I tried Manga Studio or Clip Studio, as it's now called, and a few of the other ones. And I've experimented with Procreate, but Sketchbook on a Cintiq is the closest I've ever felt to drawing on actual paper. So yeah, pretty much since day one, I've been using Sketchbook. So the pencil sketch kind of very quickly goes from, this was slightly different than how I usually work, because this one, we needed to be able to break up the elements into layers. So you've got the little girl painting as her own standalone thing, etc., etc. And I wanted to make that easier for whoever was in charge of editing the artwork. So I broke my illustration into layers. So as you can see here, that's the background. And again, the beauty of putting the gray square there is that you can bleed off the edges and you have, space to work with. Let me actually get rid of myself so you can see the full screen now. So there's the background. It's a bit simpler over here, as you can see, where I know there's going to be stuff blocking it. Background, added a little cabin in there. And then the fun part, started adding some of the characters. So as you can see, you've got the girl, the Intuos tablet kid, and the bear, a very thoughtful bear. Then, I added the tree and some decoration. And finally, the kid in the foreground. Once that was complete, as you can see, it looks, it's pretty clear, but it's a bit of a mess. I took that, I saved it as a PSD from Sketchbook, and then I drag it into Photoshop. And as you can see, it looks very similar there to how it was. But then I would export different layers. So you've got the girl painting there. Export that as a black and white image on its own, and then add color. And the way I work with color in Photoshop is, this could be a seminar in and of itself. It's quite complicated, but it's a process I stole from, or I say stole, learned from the colorist the colorist and the artist behind Baby Blues. If anybody's seen the comic strip Baby Blues in the newspaper, and it's there's a whole bunch of settings within Photoshop that are quite tricky. You have to change, but basically I set it so that you've got the black layer here like that, and then you duplicate that. So you've got two black layers, and that way you can do your line art and make sure you block everything out, get everything colored in, without destroying the original black artwork. And then if you screw up, you can always revert back to just the black line artwork. So yeah, you've got a finished file there. And then, I go through and add a little bit of shading. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can maybe see. So we add some shading over here and on there as well. And, a couple of highlights, some highlights, yeah, subtle stuff like that, highlights. And then my trick that I do is I would flatten that image and then select the black layer on contiguous, paste that into the initial black layer, like that. And then again, you've got the kind of final file. If you were printing this for a magazine, that's how they'd want it in CMYK, so that you wouldn't, for registration and stuff. But everybody prints digitally these days. But this is a very traditional kind of newspaper way of working. But as you can see, you've got the black layer there. And then my trick is I switch out the black for a purple, because I just think it looks more interesting. And then, you've got the Camp Wacom logo, which I didn't want in black. I wanted it purple, or in red, I'm sorry. So, stuff like that. Switch that out. And then you've got, a little image there, which I then select all of the background layers, get rid of those. Select inverse, copy. And then, I paste it in there. As you can see, it sits on top of the, actually my trick, let me go back to my trick there. So I would select that layer, because here's the trick. if you select a layer and then Command V on top of that, it pastes it exactly in place. There you go. So they're sitting there in color on top of the sketch. And so, yeah, that's how I did it, is I just kind of built it out from there. And that's my coloring process. So then you eventually just do it layer by layer and paste it all in, and you end up with that. That was the lightning fast rendition of how I created the Wacom Camp artwork.
And look, when you work on these pieces, like you get the brief, when you start working, do you sit down and do like a whole drawing session, or do you first, let the brief sink in and maybe doodle some things in your journal and then transfer those characters here? Did this illustration happen in one sitting session, or is it accumulation of journals and a few days of brainstorming?
Well, this was a rare one because sort of as soon as I got the brief, or not even a brief really, because you gave me so much freedom, that it was just, once it was kind of the creativity camp, I had this image of a sort of 70s, 80s summer camp, maybe upstate New York, somewhere out in the wilderness. And I just went for it. I basically knew exactly what I wanted to draw. And so, yeah, it's probably partly because I've been doing this Instagram thing where I do a drawing every day. A lot of the time now, I can just dive straight into projects and not spend too much time, coming up with drafts and different ideas and stuff. Usually, it sounds boastful to say I nail what I'm trying to do straight away, but yeah, basically, I achieved what I was shooting for in the sketch straight away. So yeah, it's very rare that I spend too much time kind of doodling and sketching and plotting stuff out. With a music video or something like that, you have to try a lot of approaches. But a single standalone image, a lot of the time I can kind of see exactly what I want to do in my mind's eye, and then just get out there and achieve it. If I can dream it, I can achieve it.
Do you prefer projects with a lot of freedom, or projects with a lot of, very specific direction that, you can just execute pretty straightforwardly?
I like both, honestly. I like to be able to follow an exact brief, because that's a lot of the time, yeah, when the client is really clear and specific about what they want, it comes together pretty quickly, unless they then have too many notes. They feel like they're too in control. But I also like to have a lot of freedom, because it used to stress me out when I'd be given too much freedom, because it's like, oh well, I don't really know what I want to do and what the client wants and stuff. But I think after a few years, I got it into my head, and it's probably good advice for any young artist, is if a lot of the time, if somebody's hiring you, it's because they like your vision and what you want to do. So once I kind of convinced myself of that people were hiring me for what I would bring to the table, it made things a lot easier, because it's like, oh, okay, I can be creative, I can have fun with this, because that's what I'm being hired for, is how I would come up with a 70s summer camp, that type of thing. So yeah, I like both. I like being told what to do, but I also like having complete creative control.
Thank you, Luke. From the Q&A, we have a question. How do you develop your personal style? It's super simple, but expressive and very unique. What are some of your influences?
Yeah, so I used to, it's taken a few years at this point. I've been working, as I said, in my little description of myself. I started working while I was in high school. Oh, look, Adobe Flash Player is reminding me.
Be careful.
No longer works. Yeah, so I started working professionally at about 16, 17. And so I'm 36 now, so I've been working forever professionally. And so it didn't just happen overnight. And before that, even I was drawing every day as a little kid. So it's taken me 36 years to develop my style. But initially, when I started out, I was really influenced by Robert Crumb and a couple other British illustrators, like older kind of 60s illustrators. Um, I was really into the sort of underground comic scene. And as my work sort of developed and as I got faster, it just kind of simplified. So, uh, Crumb, there's so much slavish sort of detail and cross hatching and, shading and stuff. So eventually that just sort of went out the window and my work really became quite influenced by Hergé, who does Tintin, and was like a big proponent of the line Claire technique, which is just simple lines, simple color, um, and sort of in the great tradition of French and Belgian and European comics. So yeah, just over the years, as I've gotten faster at drawing, my work's gotten simpler, and it just kind of came through drawing every day. Yeah, that's all I can recommend for anybody is just draw every day, and you eventually settle into your own niche, as it were.
I was going to ask you about that because so you mentioned your drawing everyday comic on Instagram, a comic a day. Did you start doing that because of the Instagram algorithm? Were you trying to, you know, uh, beat the algorithm, or was that just a personal goal that I must doodle every day to, you know, be more disciplined? What was that about?
Yeah, that's it. It's funny because I'm sure the algorithm was in place, but back when I started this, there wasn't even that much talk of the algorithm. Instagram really was just a place to share pictures. And I started it because there was a few artists I followed um, that would post kind of a piece of art every 2 weeks or something, and then the rest of the time it was just images of their personal life or their dog or the vacation they went on, etc. And I thought it would be really good to just see a straight art page. I hadn't really seen anybody doing that, and I'm sure there was, but I really wanted just a place for cartoons. And so partly it was that, and partly it was because I'd just done the artwork for um, Tenacious D, Jack Black, and Kyle Gass. I'd just done the artwork for their big festival, Supreme Festival in Los Angeles, which was 30 comedy and music acts all playing at Santa Monica Pier. And they'd found me just because I'd done the poster for another show that was going to be at the Santa Monica Pier, and there was just the just posters all over the lampposts on the Santa Monica Pier. And Jack and Kyle were doing a site tour, and they said, "Oh, who's this guy? We should get him to do our artwork." So they tracked me down and found me and hired me to do the artwork. But I didn't really have an online presence. I had a small website, but I wasn't really updating it. Um, and so they'd found me through that. But then there's a few other people like Cartoon Network finally tracked me down and said, "We've been looking all over for you. Like we've been looking for the guy that did the Tenacious D artwork." So I thought, oh, I should probably have more of a social media presence. So it was sort of that too. It was like, put my name out there, make sure people can find me. Um, you know, do a page of pure art and make sure I was drawing every day. The other thing too was that I kept having these ideas for comics or one-off gags, and there was nowhere to put them. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be great one day if I was hired to draw this cartoon? And I thought, well, why am I waiting to do that? I might as well just do it and get it out there. And so that was part of it too. I had all these jokes that I wanted to use, and instead of waiting to get a syndicated comic strip in the newspaper, I just went for it. And a lot of the old traditional cartoonists that I knew were um, shocked and advised me not to do it. They said, "Don't give this stuff away for free. You could be making money off this." But I posted a free joke every day on Instagram, and through that, art directors and different clients were finding me. So it was a non-traditional method at the time, but now I feel like every artist is using social media to get work. So yeah, it was
Awesome.
it was an online portfolio as well as a practice to keep my hand in.
Well, two things. I want to continue to watch you draw, and also I want to talk a little bit while you do that. You mentioned jokes and humor, And I want to ask you a little bit about your background. Do you have a background in comedy? Because you do bring a lot of humor into your comics. You also use a lot of current events and use stuff in the media and memes and whatnot. You're basically staying in the know and then making your own commentary. And I want to, not everybody has that knack. Have you taken writing classes for comedy? Let us know.
Yeah, no, it was I basically I all of this is informal. You know, I went to the arts high school, but again, there was no sort of you know, they were there was no focus on cartoonists there. You know, it was mainly focused on fine art. So a lot of this is self-taught. I was lucky to grow up. My dad's a cartoonist and had his own comic strip in the newspaper in the UK for 15 years or so. And all of his other friends were cartoonists as well. So when I was a kid, I assumed that's what adults did when they grew up, is sit around in their underpants drawing all day. Um, it's something I was interested in, was kind of studying from a young age. So I'd read the funny papers, you know, the newspaper comic section every morning while I was having my breakfast before school. But no, it was always just something I was interested in. I was always just interested in kind of humor and the the surprisingly hard skill of, you know, cramming a joke into 4 panels. You know, because it is a lot harder than it looks, and so it's taken a few years to perfect that as well. Single panel gags are even harder because you have to convey an entire story in one image. You know, but yeah, it was just something I really wanted to do and had kind of watched my dad doing for years. So nobody really taught me. It was just kind of learning by osmosis. And again, you know, just through practice, I feel like if I look back at my jokes from 10 years ago, they're, you know, not as strong as the ones I'm writing today. But on the other hand, there's some that I look back on 10 years ago. It's like, I'd forgotten I did that because it's very funny. If I do say so myself, it seems like somebody else drew it because it looks so different and the humor is so different, but it's like I'm hearing them for the first time now.
Someone in the chat asked a question that I ask myself often. How do you find the time to post a comic every day? Because you have to obviously concept it, draw it, and then post it every single day. I'm in social media, Luke. That takes a long time. How do you do it?
Yeah. Well, that's it's again, so through part of the process of you know, forcing myself to draw every day, I've now kind of treat it as my warm-up. So yeah, in between projects, like but there's always a million things going on. Um, but every morning I get up, I have breakfast, I have a cup of coffee or whatever. And yeah, I sort of read the news or watch TV or unfortunately see which celebrity has died. And I
No,
force
Luke, no.
myself I force myself to, you know, come up with a joke. And yeah, so it's just kind of my part of my warm up process. So basically, what I'm posting every day is what I was doing before I actually started proper work. Yeah, so it does get tricky, and so lately, you know, sometimes I'll be on a huge project where I'm not sleeping, I'm barely even showering, and you know, I'll repost an old comic. But for the most part, every day it's just my warm up. Yeah, and that's part of the discipline that I've drummed into myself. So yeah, it's not for everybody.
Oh,
It's
Luke.
taken
I
10
love
years
that
of
you
obsessing.
I love that you mentioned that that's a celebrity thing because I just saw you post one. And yeah,
Oh yeah.
yes, yes, he's not lying. More questions from the chat. Actually, this one came from the Q&A. But Luke, I want to challenge you, since you draw a comic every day, to draw your next comic right here live because I
All
want
right.
to watch you draw because I
Okay.
love you drawing. So let's see, not about that's a celebrity, but
Yeah.
maybe, we were talking about how much you travel, and we just launched this product for nomads called Moving, the Wacom Moving, and is assigned to, for creatives on the go. And I always wondered, what's the craziest place that you've had to draw something, Luke?
All right. Okay. Well,
What about the craziest, most embarrassing place you've had to ever draw something?
yeah, that's a good question. All right. Okay. I think I know what to do here.
All
Um,
right.
and I'll take this opportunity to again show a little bit of my process. So
Yeah.
also, if anybody in the chat or the Q&A wants to throw out suggestions for stuff, we can always incorporate.
Yeah, in the chat, if you guys have worked in a really strange place and you want to look to illustrate it, I always wondered with these artists that travel a lot and they have to meet their deadlines, are they in the airport? Are they at a Denny's working at night? Like, what's happening?
Yeah. All right. So, real quick, here's my process on how I do my daily cartoons. This is the type of thing you'll see here. So, I always start with just a square canvas. I do 11 by 11 inches at 300 DPI, and then I shrink down a little square there. This is just my, as I mentioned earlier, my little guide for my canvas. Then I set the symmetrical device. I don't know what it's called there. What is that called? Oh, it's just called symmetry. Yeah, exactly. I was right. Look, I know what I'm doing. And then I take pencil here and I make it a little square grid because it's going to be a 4-panel guy. So there you go. And then make sure to turn the symmetry off. And yeah, this is how so I'm trying to think of the most embarrassing place I've had to do a cartoon.
I know, Luke, but asking you, I'm going to tell you, it's, consider our audience.
Yeah.
I know you've probably drawn in some really interesting places, but keep it PG.
Oh yeah, oh, absolutely. It's gonna certainly be PG. Um, let's see. Well, one time I was on a boat in Helsinki going to a prison island.
What? Wow. Okay. And you
There's
had to
a,
draw there.
yeah, there's a fortress in Helsinki. I was out there for the Helsinki Comic Arts Festival. And yeah, we had a day off, and they're like, "Oh, you've got to check out this prison on an island." So anyway, so here's my process. We're doing a cartoon about myself. I'll zoom in a little bit so that everybody can see nice and big. So it's always usually the same kind of drawing of myself. Here I am drawing.
You draw yourself very consistently.
Yeah, it's I'm just very self-obsessed. No, this started actually because I was doing for ages this comic strip called Sad Chewy. People might remember it, and it was every so often it would go viral. But it was about Chewbacca dealing with the death of Han Solo, and the idea behind it was the same joke every week. It was always just him being sad about Han Solo, and so when I do kind of appearances and signings and stuff, I would draw Sad Chewy, and it was working for ages. But then I went and did a talk in China at the school, and none of them had seen the Star Wars movies for some reason. So Sad Chewy didn't mean anything to them. So I had to very quickly come up with a caricature of myself, and it was basically this, and it just kind of got refined since then. So yeah, I've been drawing myself consistently out of necessity because I was in China with nothing else to draw.
Oh my God, I just got an anonymous attendee asking a question related to what you're talking about.
Oh,
Do you ever feel like you are locked into a clothing and hairstyle because of the character you're drawing?
um, a little bit, although I have stopped wearing stripy shirts as much because the number of people that would come up to me at Comic Cons and be like, "Oh, you really do dress like your cartoon character." Initially I was poking fun at myself, but then, as the cartoon became more recognizable, it just became too weird. It's like
Yeah.
playing as myself. So, The hair I don't feel locked into. Actually, yeah, I do, but not because of the cartoons. I'm just in the habit of bleaching my hair. But the clothing style, no, it's kind of basically just how I dress anyway. A stripy shirt and a denim jacket all the time. Um,
It's true.
yeah, you've met me in real life. I'm always dressed exactly the same.
It's
Um,
you, and I also met your friend Gemma, and they
yeah,
also their character online also has the same stripy shirt.
yeah, it was very funny doing a couple seminars with Gemma Carell. If people are familiar with her work, she's a very talented humorist and illustrator. But yeah, we were on a bunch of panels together, and we were both dressed exactly the same, except I was in a black and white striped shirt, and she was in a red striped shirt. But yeah,
Yeah.
very funny to meet two people that genuinely dress like their cartoon character.
While you're drawing, I'm gonna go look at the Q&A here. Jonathan has a few questions. Let's see. What would you say to a cartoonist looking for work with no degree and working on a shoestring budget in 2024? Do you have any advice?
Um, my advice would be, well, certainly was it no degree, because the
No
no degree.
degree and a shoestring budget
Yeah,
because it's rough out there. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I also never got a degree. I went to college for one day and then dropped out because I didn't like it. Um, but genuinely, nobody has ever asked me for my degree. The kind of the benefit of going to school is solely like learning new styles and making connections and stuff. But being kind of exposed to different mediums. But you really do not need a degree to do cartoon work. Um, so my advice would be, honestly, is to just kind of get your stuff out there. The Instagram algorithm is sort of suffocating artists lately, but it still remains a really good place to post your work and share your work and kind of build an online community, especially if there's not a lot of cartoonists in your neighborhood or neighborhood area. You know, uh, I live in LA and there's a few cartoonists here, but um, we're so insular. Everybody's just in their studios all the time, so there's not a lot of hangouts. So kind of attending conventions if you can get in um, is a great way to do it. But yeah, just sharing your stuff online is such a good way to build community. And you don't need a lot of fancy equipment or any degrees or anything to get your stuff out there. It's pretty straightforward. So that would be my advice: is just get your stuff out there and start adding people as friends, etc., and reaching out to them. Build community. That's what it's all about.
Reach out to brands as well.
Yes, absolutely. There's always people looking for illustrators and stuff, and kind of social media collaborations is still a great way to make connections, especially because there's so many people that can get an influencer to wear a t-shirt or whatever, but so few people are meeting or working with cartoonists. They never think to do it, so it's an insane niche in the market that nobody really thinks to tackle, is because social media is still very much a visual medium, but you can only post so many photos of the same, woman with nice hair wearing, whatever your product is before, you know, uh, people get tired. A cartoon is always a good way to break things up. So yeah, reach out to brands.
You mentioned events. Our attendee who asked the question is mentioning that, a shoestring budget. Have you noticed that conventions and events are becoming more expensive to attend lately? Is it harder to go table now? Is it a budget, how are you feeling? Are events still a good way to find work?
Yeah, I think they are, especially the smaller ones. I'd say sort of the most prohibitive convention would be San Diego Comic Con or something like that, one of the really massive ones. But there's not so much. I mean, yes, the entire industry is there, but it's all people that aren't going to talk to you anyway. Like, no, regardless of who you are, they're too busy, doing stuff. So, you could meet whatever the head of whatever studio there, but they're too busy doing stuff at San Diego Comic Con. It's too hectic. Those really big conventions are not the way, especially if you're just getting your foot in the door. I mean, there's always exceptions, but I think the smaller conventions, depending on where you are, there's loads of small conventions popping up. There's even DIY ones, local artists are doing pop-ups in the back of a store. There's always a zine fest or something like that that are either free or incredibly cheap to, table at. So they're still good. It's still a great way to meet people. But yeah, the really big ones that are cost prohibitive aren't really worth it anyway until you're being flown out by 20th Century Fox to do a signing there, and it's like yeah, so stick to the small ones. They're still great.
Small events, amazing communities.
That's right.
Um, let's see. Thank you for joining a comic live. Look, I know it's a lot of pressure to talk and draw.
Yeah, I'm seeing and also think of a joke. um but
So
yeah,
yeah,
no.
Luke usually works, like he said earlier, on a Cintiq Pro. Have you tried working on tablets, on opaque tablets? Have you used Intuos before?
Yeah, so I it's funny because I used to use the Intuos before I met you guys. I was using the Intuos for all my coloring because I even back when I was traditional pen and ink on paper, I would scan everything in and then color it in Photoshop using an Intuos. So yeah, it's I never used, well, actually, that's not true. I was going to say I never used one for drawing, but I would do the odd drawing here and there on the Intuos. But this is, again, 15 years ago. So I can only imagine how much easier they are to use now. Not that they were hard at the time, but it was like, um, especially, Macs, because I use a Mac
Hmm.
extensively. Um, the interfaces on those were slower. I feel like everything now is so easy for digital artists. So yeah, I haven't tried it into us in probably about 15 years, but I can only imagine how good they are now. But yeah, I used to use an Intuos all the time. I was a big fan.
Awesome. Just making sure people know that to draw comics like Luke, you could definitely use a tablet. You do not need a display. Luke just likes a big screen,
That's right. I like a really big screen.
likes to travel with it too.
Yeah.
Camila is asking, hello, what is your best advice, Luke, to have a good portfolio, a good one that's going to help find a job?
That is a good question. I think, it's definitely people want to see a sort of a range of work, but it really depends on what kind of gig you're trying to get out of your portfolio because um, there's a lot of people that want to get hired on different projects. So like if you wanted to be, say for example, you were looking for background work on a Cartoon Network show, they would want you to be able to sort of work in the in-house style, and that's something I've always avoided. I kind of wanted to just be my own thing. Um, but I have a lot of friends that work in the animation industry and stuff, and you have to sort of be malleable and work within different styles. So it really depends on what kind of gig you're shooting for. So if you did want to be working on whatever animation project or whatever was coming up, I think being able to show a variety of styles and a variety of look, I can do props, I can do backgrounds, I can do character design. I can work within other people's styles and formats. I think would be a great thing to show. But if you're like me and you want to kind of get hired for magazine illustration and you know comics and stuff like that, your own making, um, I think it's just a consistent, clean, clear vision. Something that you bring to the table that nobody else can, and that would be my advice. If that makes sense, is you know consistency if you're shooting for your own thing, and variety if you're looking to pick up uh, other work. And if you need clarification on that, please feel free to ask.
Yes, please go follow Luke on Instagram and bother him with all the questions. He just told us he posts every day, so he's there a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to. I'm on there pretty much 24/7, and there's a lot to look at and dig through.
All right, we're gonna go continue drawing. Look, I'm not bothering you with a bunch of questions, but I'm really excited that people are asking about something that I've wondered about too. Do you usually draw your fonts, or do you just write them? I'm sorry, do you use a font or do you write your own letters?
Yeah, that's one thing that I worked the hardest on is that I do hand letter everything because I was always really into um, like old Nancy comics and stuff. Like I really liked Bushmiller's lettering and stuff. Um, classic Schultz's lettering and Peanuts was great too. I was always obsessed with comic art lettering, but when you try and type that, it's Comic Sans. It's an international joke. Everybody hates that font. So for me, there wasn't a font that I really liked that was, achieving what I wanted to. So I just spent ages practicing my handwriting and making it really neat. I say handwriting, my comic lettering. My real handwriting is a mess. But yeah, my comic lettering was something I practiced for ages because I really do enjoy the look of a hand lettered comic. So yeah, it's all hand lettered, baby. No fonts here.
Wonderful. Um, I'm watching you use your pen and you're drawing on a Cintiq. Somebody was asking earlier, what's your favorite Wacom Tech feature and what would you like to add to Wacom Tech if you could?
Um, my favorite Wacom Tech feature, and I really don't feel like I use Wacom to the extent that it's possible to use it because I'm just here drawing all the time, and I have my style, and I don't really work outside of my own style, So I think there's a million other things I could be doing, but my favorite thing is the eraser. I should be wearing a white shirt so it stands out more. But it is the eraser on the back of the pen. Like it's the thing I show people that aren't familiar with Wacom that blows them away the most is that you can flip the pen around and it has an eraser. Um, so that's my favorite kind of party trick. It's such a simple one. And genuinely, the one thing I would add to Wacom Tech, maybe this is being developed, maybe it's already out there, is a sort of a find my phone feature for the pen, something that makes the pen beep. Because the number of times I get up to make a cup of tea or something to go get a drink or go get a snack and just stick the pen in my pocket, and then I end up just putting it in the fridge or something, like just completely scatterbrained. And then I spend 20 minutes looking for where I put the pen. That would be
A find a pen feature.
yeah,
Wow.
find my pen feature, something that makes it sets off a little alarm on the pen, so you can hear it beeping between the couch cushions.
Maybe we want you to buy more pens, and when they get lost, it's a good thing for Wacom.
Yeah, absolutely. um,
Um, wow. Yeah. I hear a lot to people on Twitter asking for a pet protective sleeve because our pets bite the Wacom pen.
that's smart. Yeah, they have. Was it now that they put on like AA batteries as like a coating that tastes disgusting, so that kids don't eat them? They need that.
Yeah,
Just
maybe some.
you need to make the pens taste disgusting for me too, because I'm always like just chewing on the end of it.
Just put some hot pepper in there.
Yeah. Another feature I like a lot is I'll put it up to the camera, is the interchangeable nibs, like being able to kind of, because there's the sort of the harder plastic ones and sort of the softer, more rubbery ones. I really like being able to change out the nibs easily because I burn through these like crazy. I looked at it the other day. I was working on this. I'm working on a graphic novel at the moment, and I probably worked for about 6 days straight without sleeping, which isn't healthy. And the nib was just completely burned down. So luckily I had a whole package of replaceable nibs. But yeah, that's another feature I love is that you can switch out these little tips.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Wacom pen holders have nibs inside.
Yeah, they've got a whole you know yeah, I love that. It's also so fun to do the little
Yeah, they're right there. They're
yeah,
inside.
they're hidden inside. They all just fell out onto the floor. Um,
Yeah, I it's always amazing because I find out on social media how many people don't know they have extra nibs inside their pen holder.
yeah, so yeah, there you go. That's one of my favorite
It's
features. It's a
wonderful.
hidden feature.
I'm gonna go on with some more questions. This is one very existential. What has drawing and art taught you about life, Luke?
um, I don't know what it's taught me about life, but I do know that it has sort of ruined my life in that I'm looking for the joke everywhere in every situation. Could be going through a breakup or whatever, and it's like, oh, how am I going to make a cartoon out of this? But maybe that's a healthy way of dealing with things. Is you sort of how am I going to translate this into art? Is maybe the fancy way of saying that. But yeah, it's really taught me that everything can be made into a comic. So and people will read it for the most part. So yeah, that's what drawing taught me about life, is that you can make a joke out of anything.
That's so interesting and so true. I don't know that I'm going to be pronouncing this name right, John, so forgive me. John has a question. Luke, have you always been inspired by Herg? Hergy?
Oh,
Her-
Hergé, yeah.
Hergé. I'm so sorry. Hergé
No,
style.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so I mentioned that a bit earlier, but I was, Hergé, obviously Tintin comics, or Tan Tan. I recently learned it was supposed to be pronounced, but I prefer Tintin because it sounds less pretentious when I say it. Um, yeah, but I grew up reading Hergé stuff. It was always in my house. It was always Tintin and Asterix with the two comics that we always had lying around. So yeah, through osmosis, basically, Hergé influenced my work, and as my work got simpler and quicker, it just sort of became more inspired by Hergé because you don't have to switch pen sizes again. He developed a style, or sort of championed a style, called line clair, which just means clear line, which means that the foreground, the background, the details, everything is the exact same line weight. Not to say that it's dead, you still have a little life in your pen, little variations, but you don't like use a thick pen for the foreground and then a really tiny pen for the background. Everything's dead simple, same size, minimal cross hatching, minimal shading, and bright flat colors. So yeah, just clean lines, clean artwork. And yeah, so that for somebody that works as fast as I do, because of my lack of patience, it's Hergé is a godsend.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm concerned that this joke isn't going to make any sense, or barely be a joke, but it's a good example of my process anyway. So I'm just working away here and answering questions.
Does it happen to you a lot when you are making comics that it only hits a very specific audience because your humor is very particular, or maybe they missed the the news article that you're making fun of? Does that happen to you sometimes, that it's like, what is your joke even about?
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it even, especially like if it's a news article that's so specific, like some guy has found a deserted island and they've shot arrows at it, or not a deserted, a hidden, untouched island, and he's had an arrow shot at him. I recently saw that the other day, and there was a news story like 3 years ago from a guy that canoed up to an island, and I'll look back at that and go, what was I talking about? What was this? So yeah, even some of them are even too specific for me if you missed the news article. So lately I've been trying to avoid stuff that is too niche unless I think of a really good joke about it. But yeah, certainly my earlier work would be a lot more focused on only bands that only me and about five other people listen to. So yeah, I hate to say I've sold out and sort of tried to broaden my appeal by being less intensely niche. But yeah, it still happens. Sometimes I'm making jokes about stuff that people either neither know nor care about. But it happens, and but I would say that's a good thing too, because that's how I sort of built my audience. Is that it's a bunch of like-minded weirdos. If you're doing something that you're passionate about, uh, chances are there's other people that are passionate about it too. And it's really good to be kind of true to yourself on this stuff because people can tell when you're faking it. So writing about stuff that that you care about, that you're interested in, I think is certainly, if not just a good way to start, a good way to carry on. You have to be sort of genuine because people can smell when it's not. So yeah, there you go. Don't worry about alienating people because you'll find other people that are into exactly what you like.
That's great advice. Thank you. So it's okay if we don't get this comic, Luke.
Oh.
It'll make sense to you, and that's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. This is more of a diary than a comic.
It's more of a diary. Um, let's see. Somebody's talking about burnout. And yes, Luke, um, with posting every day, going to gigs, going tabling, going to events, how do you avoid burnout as an artist? Because you are creating every day, you're also speaking every day, and you're, you know, producing content every day. That's very, very consuming. How do you avoid burning out?
Yeah, I mean it is a surprisingly real thing. I think the problem working as a professional artist is that you can't afford to burn out, if you know what I mean. It's like you have to, even if you do get sick of it, and as much fun as a job as it is, it's still work. You still get sick of it. But yeah, you have to kind of um, keep going. You have to plow through. So it's tricky dealing with burnout. I enjoy drawing every day. It is relaxing for me. So it's a treat in that regard. So sometimes it's nice to be able to like go on a little vacation or a day trip or even just take a day off and just draw whatever you want. So luckily I've made a kind of career out of doing that. I'll just draw something in my sketchbook that's for me. Um, and that's how I relax. But I think that's it. I think you just need to focus on what you still enjoy about doing art. And some days you really just don't want to. Some days I will repost a comic because I'm just tired or busy or, you know, um, as of yesterday, I just flew back from New York. I was trapped in a tornado. So I think, oh no, I did do a new cartoon about being trapped in a tornado, which was fun. But I almost just posted an old cartoon because it's like I can't do this today. But yeah, so I think you just have to focus on the parts that you enjoy about working, because it it is a privilege to get to just do art for a living. So complaining too much about it starts to sound ungrateful. But yeah, my advice to avoid burning out or deal with burnout is to just focus on the parts that you enjoy because you have to stick with it. Unfortunately, you have to keep plowing through. It's dedication to the craft. I
Thank
found too,
you.
I was actually discussing this about, if I can just add one more thing, is that
Yeah.
a lot of it too, be it cartoons or making films or acting or whatever it is that you're doing, for a lot of us in creative pursuits, it's less of like oh, it's a job or a hobby. It's like a calling or almost a sickness. I was joking earlier about like, everything in life is how am I going to make this comic. It's more of an obsession than like how am I going to make money out of this. So I think again, while burnout is real, I think you're not going to be able to help yourself. You put down the pen for a day, but you're right back on it the next day because it's an obsession. So yeah, it's unfortunately we will get burned out, but all of us are too obsessed to stop. Ideally.
If the burnout is coming out from social media, maybe you abandon social media for a few days.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
I
the
mean,
burnout is not coming from your art. Hopefully,
yeah,
yeah.
that's a very good point. Actually, is that you're under no obligation to post on social media. And sometimes that is a good thing to take a break from because you do kind of get addicted to the dopamine hit of likes or whatever, and taking a few days off that it's stressful at first because you're like, I'm not getting the likes, I'm not getting the validation. But yeah, taking a break from social media is a good is absolutely a way to deal with burnout. Again, yeah, as I'm saying, just draw for yourself. Just do what you enjoy about the artwork without sort of the pressure of an audience. Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Thank you, Luke. I want to remind everyone that we have a whole month packed with tutorials with our friends doing creativity camp. So please visit our creativity camp site to check out the rest of the lineup and join us next week. We have some other amazing events coming up that my team has put together. My colleague Abby has shared the landing page there so you can register and check out the upcoming events. Do you use references when you draw your cartoons?
Yeah, very, very rarely. I mean, as you can see from this boat here, I've not looked at a boat to draw that. I think if I'm, drawing a celebrity, then yes, or drawing something specific from the news, then yes. But for the most part, and this is something I tell students at schools all the time too, is you shouldn't worry too much about reference, especially in comics, when worry about being too accurate. On what is this? What a car looks like? Is this what a horse looks like? Is this what a bicycle looks like? Because I think part of the charm of comics is seeing how somebody else would draw a horse. It's like, oh, you've drawn. This is how Luke McGarry draws a horse. This is what the people want to see. So I mean, obviously, you need to know a little bit in your mind's eye what a horse looks like. So if you've never seen one, definitely look one up. But I think worrying too much about being accurate is only going to slow you down and is only going to hamper your work. I think you do need to um, it's your vision is what I would say, and it's really good to get in that mindset of like the people are lucky to see how I would draw a bicycle. You know what I mean? Yeah, so I rarely use reference because it's all up here.
Awesome. Adam Fox wants to know in the chat or in the Q&A if you have what is your best single trick or tip that you can share to level up a comic artist's skill?
Um, without sounding like a broken record, it would be to draw every day. You just because you'd be surprised. I mean, even with my stuff, if you look at the work I was doing 2 years ago, uh, is a lot more kind of stiff than the work I'm doing now. So you need to just stick with it, draw every day, even if it's not client work. Um, you just kind of stick in, do your thing, and it just your work will improve by leaps and bounds. So yeah, if you want to level up, it's what's it, 10,000 hours of practice. You just have to do it every day, all the time, whatever chance you get, just draw. And again, if you're like me, that's all you want to be doing anyway. So if you have, whenever you have time, just draw would be my advice. Or, if the comic artist skill you want to, improve is your lettering. Yeah, just write all the time, handwrite all the time, write all your comics. Just the thing you want to do is what you should be doing all the time, because it's just repetition is what helps you develop your own style, and makes you a master at it, I suppose.
So look, you're also an animator. When did that come along? Was that something recent? Was it for your own personal projects, or did you start doing it because the client asked you?
Yeah. So here's another lesson for people: is the freelancer's code, which is to say yes, you can do it, and then figure it out later. Get the job, and then figure it out later. You have to be relatively confident that you will be able to figure it out, because otherwise, you'll never work again. But I dabbled in animation a little bit when I was at arts high school, because again, they let us try sort of every medium. So I'd been exposed to animation, but it was traditional, sort of on paper, overhead camera, frame by frame animation. So I learned the old fashioned way of doing animation. And then back in the day, there was a program called Flash. If you were looking at my screen earlier, I got notified that Flash doesn't exist anymore. There was a pop-up telling me to delete it off my computer. But ever since I was a kid, I would mess around with Flash on the computer. So I sort of had an idea of how keyframes worked, how animation worked, but I'd never done an animated project before. And then when I was about 19, a music industry client hit me up. I'd done a couple posters for them and a couple album covers. And then they said, "Oh, we'd actually like to do an animated music video. You're a cartoonist. Do you know how to animate?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So I had 2 months to turn this video around. And it was just a crash course of my brother, who I work with on a lot of projects, and myself, just teaching ourselves how to animate. And again, like, luckily I knew the basics, but I'd never done it before. So I just lied and said I could, and plowed through. And so, looking back now, it's funny because that project is probably maybe one of my top three animated things, just because of sort of the naivete of somebody starting out. It's amazing what you can achieve when you don't know what you're doing. Your work turns out really interesting. And then once I knew what I was doing, I'm too focused on the rules and stuff. So I'd say first animated project was amazing. The next three or four was sort of a curve. And then, by 5 or 6, I knew what I was doing exactly and had my own style and stuff. But yeah, I think, animation, I just taught myself. And with any of these things, you just go for it.
Isn't that crazy? I feel the same way with my sculpture. When I started, I was a better sculptor than like now,
Yeah.
because I'm so self-conscious about it because I have all the theory
Yeah.
behind it.
Yeah, it's funny. My friends are in a band, and they have a friend that is completely non-musical, like, can't, and nothing in tune, doesn't understand any music theory, whatever. And they always ask her, like, they'll play her their new song. They go, "What do you think?" And she'll be like, "It needs more air." And they're like, "Oh, amazing, yeah." So not knowing what you're doing is actually a very
Yeah,
handy.
sometimes it's better.
Yeah.
Somebody's congratulating you on your engagement, Luke. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Recently engaged. Yeah.
Would you ever want to create an animated sitcom out of your comic?
Yeah, that's something I'd be. Uh, it's certainly something that's been discussed, actually, relatively recently as well, without saying too much. And who knows what will happen. But yeah, it's something I'm actually actively pursuing. Um, because I think that'd be great. The two things I grew up on were the newspaper comics and The Simpsons. So ideally, I'd achieve both. But yeah, that I would absolutely love to do an animated sitcom. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But that's partly why I've never sort of taken jobs at animation studios to date, is because in the back of my mind, and this might be, cocky, this might be self-important, but I've always thought, my argument has always been, if Matt Groening had, done character design on a different cartoon and then come out with The Simpsons, you'd be like, oh, well, this just looks like, the Flintstones, same character designed the Flintstones. And The Simpsons wouldn't have been a big a hit as it was, because you've already seen that now. But The Simpsons was so funny and looked so unlike anything else that it became, this cultural phenomenon. Same with, just any of the major cartoons. It's something you hadn't seen before. Family Guy, you hadn't seen that before. He was just doing his own thing.
Adventure Time, Luke. Adventure Time. How is that a thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you'd never seen these guys working elsewhere in the animation industry before. So when it came out, it was like, wow, this is amazing. So, not to say I'd ever be on par with those guys if something took off, but it's always been in the back of my mind, is that, I have to save my work for my own thing. So yeah, the animated sitcom has always been a plan in the back of my mind. It's just getting it out there now. It would have been better if had I done this during the pandemic, when animation was really taking off, because nobody was allowed to, act in actual on-screen stuff. It was all animation. But now the animation industry is dying, so I'm always slightly too late to things.
I noticed that whenever you don't like somebody, you draw that little character, that bald guy.
Yeah, he's my foil, and that's
Yeah.
that's another thing too that's kind of come out of just drawing every day. Is initially, when I needed somebody to talk to um, in a comic, it would be a dog or a different, various characters. And then I came up with this guy that I call Mr. Biscuits. And he's just my enemy in every comic. Sometimes he's my best friend. Sometimes he's my enemy. Sometimes he's the smart one. Sometimes he's the dumb one. But yeah, he's just a kind of stand-in for everybody.
Yep. Luke's number one enemy in his comics is also the sun, the literal sun, the LA sun.
Yeah, I did. I do have a lot of issues with the sun. He's definitely my number one enemy for sure. Yeah, I mean that's why I'm a cartoonist. I try and stay inside as much as possible. But with all the portable Wacom stuff, I can be outside drawing on the boat, like in this comic.
Yes, for anyone listening, if you haven't heard, we did launch an amazing new product last month called Moving. The Wacom Moving is the lightest tablet in the market. Please go check it out. Luke, do you have any recommendations for books that you've studied to help you with your storytelling? A question from John.
Yeah, that is a good question. It's honestly the best book, and a surprisingly big influence on me, because I'm originally, as I mentioned earlier, I'm originally from the UK, which you may or may not know. So growing up, kind of Charles Schulz and Peanuts wasn't a huge thing for me. I was aware of it, but it didn't really mean much to me. But a couple of years ago, I got the book. I'm trying to see if it's on my bookshelf right now. I should have it to hand. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's all of the early Peanut strips, like from when it launched in 1953 to whatever. So I think it covers like the 50s to the 70s of Charles Schulz's work, and it's sort of right before it became the cultural phenomenon that we know and love today. It was a lot darker and a lot weirder. And yeah, so I'd say one of the massive influences in the book I would definitely recommend. Again, I'm trying to see it on my shelf. Would be the book of early Peanuts stuff, because it's just phenomenal. The jokes are so weird and so funny, and yeah, it was huge for me when I saw that. So that I recommend that one. Well, let me step off screen for
Yeah,
one.
do it. Thank
Uh,
you. If anyone else in the chat has any recommendations for books that have
ah,
helped you,
here we go. I was wrong. It's not. It doesn't even go up to the 70s. It just covers 1950 to 1952. But yeah, the complete Peanuts, and it's every daily and Sunday for 2 years. But it's just so good. But I mean, look at how different Charlie Brown looked. Uh,
yeah.
and if I can share my favorite joke while I'm here from this, it's the first ever Charlie Brown joke, and Charlie Brown's barely even a character in it, but it's just, well, here comes old Charlie Brown. Good old Charlie Brown, yes sir. Good old Charlie Brown. How I hate him. That's the first ever Peanuts joke. It's phenomenal. So that I'd say even that cartoon itself changed my career. It's just like, what is
Yep.
that? Yeah, you can just, it's just 3 panels of the same thing and then just a complete non sequitur.
Thanks for showing us, Luke.
Yeah, I would very strongly recommend that book. And nobody's ever asked me that, so thank you for asking that question.
Luke is wrapping up his little comic strip here. For those who didn't catch, this was a challenge. I asked Luke to draw a comic about the weirdest place he's ever drawn in.
And
Luke
the answer
travels a
was
lot.
a boat on an island prison in a boat to an island prison in Helsinki.
An
Uh,
island prison.
uh,
Luke, what do you take with you when you travel for work? What do you bring with you? What's your mobile workstation setup?
yeah, so when I'm traveling light, and I know I'm not going to have any deadlines come in, it's just a sketchbook and a handful of pens. Um, and when I am traveling, say overseas or something, it's busy time, and I know work is going to be coming in. I have a Wacom Mobile Studio Pro and just a laptop. Yeah, so just throw that all in a shoulder bag and away I go. But yeah, it's I'm just 9 times out of 10 I have a Wacom product on me. But yeah, it's the Mobile Studio Pro is great for that sort of thing.
Yeah, it used to be a really great product. We no longer carry the Mobile Studio Pro.
Oh, there you go.
You have a one of the yeah, they're beloved. A lot of people really were big fans. It's a standalone because it has a PC connected to it. Our new moving
Exactly.
is quite different, but it's much, much lighter, much more compact, and it's the one we're going to be supporting. So if you are interested in a mobile device, although Luke loves his Mobile Studio Pro, I encourage you to check out the link here that Ebony has shared, so you can check out why we're in love with the moving, and maybe Luke needs to try it.
Maybe I do. I mean, I can only imagine because I loved the Mobile Studio Pro. But yeah, it was a little heavy. It was a big one because it was all self-contained. So yeah, I can only imagine how good the Move Ink one is if it's lighter. It wasn't prohibitive, but yeah, anything that's lighter is better. Uh, Anything that I can fit under the chair on a plane is the ideal thing to travel with. So yeah, this is we made it. It's I can actually probably ink this too now that I've written the joke. Um,
Here it is.
Here's the joke. But yeah, this is usually my pencil process is about 10 seconds. So here's the final joke. It's I'm drawing a comic on the boat to an island prison. Work never ceases. I'm feeling a little queasy though. Oh brother, I'm gonna Ralph. And then it's me at the island prison. And the prison guard is saying, good thing you're at an island prison because this comic sucks and you're going to jail. So there you go. That's a true story. And I'll do another comic about how I got out of jail at my next seminar.
When you bring you back.
Yeah, I need to. um, so anyway, so that's very quickly how I, draw that stuff. And then this is how I ink it too. I'll show you that because we've got about 9 minutes left in this presentation. But also, yeah, if anyone has any other questions, I'm happy to.
It's true. We are about to wrap up in about 10 minutes. So if you have any last questions you want to send to Luke, any comments, any questions to us, the Wacom team, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A. Remember that we have more webinars coming up next week and the week following. All the month of July, we're going to have Wacom Creativity Camp happening. My team has worked really hard to put some really nice events together for you. So please join us. They're always at the same time at 4:30 PST.
They're the place to be.
What else do you have going on this summer, Luke? This is a summer camp, all about summer. I'm curious to find out what you're doing this summer, where you're going, any fun conventions happening.
Yeah, well, I'll be at San Diego Comic Con if anybody else is there. I'll be at the National Cartoonist Society booth every day, just kind of doing caricatures for people and selling prints and stuff. So I'll be hanging out there. And other than that, it's a busy summer for work. I'm working on my first. I've released a couple of comics and stuff, but I'm working on my first graphic novel. So I'll be focused on that all summer. And yeah, other than that, it's just kind of trying to stay out of the sun. So if anybody wants to see me, really the only place I'll be able to interact with people is San Diego Comic Con. But other than that, I'm always available to chat with people in the DMs.
I'm gonna try to link people here to your music project as well, because Luke also has a band and is a singer and has really fun music out there, him and his brother. And I'm a big fan and I want you to check it out. So I'm gonna put it in the chat in a second.
Oh yeah, that's a good. Of course, I forgot about that. But we just released a new single called "Soul Train." That's out now. The band is called Pop Noir, so you can find us on social media. It's just POPNOIR. But yeah, we'll be kind of releasing new stuff this summer. I don't think we're doing any shows because we're still recording. But yeah, we're around. We might be doing some DJ sets if you're in the Los Angeles area. But yeah, other than that, you can check us out online. I always forget to mention that because I'm always so bogged down in art stuff. But yes, good call, Elizabeth. I am in a band that I should be promoting.
You are in a band, and for some very strange reason, my Spotify Discover Weekly constantly suggests you. And yeah, I'm probably a top listener.
Yeah, I should imagine so. Um, you messaged me a couple weeks ago because it had come out on in your
It
car.
had come up. I was driving and I was like, here's Luke again.
So yeah, anyway, God, goodness knows whether I'll finish this in time, but this is again, you're seeing a sneak peek of the process. And
Yeah.
whoever asked about layering, this is exactly what I'm doing right now. So yeah, everything's hand layered.
So in this software, Sketchbook Pro, is that similar to Photoshop where you work in layers, you have to name them each, or it's just one big layer?
Yeah, this breaks down into layers.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I see the thing now. Okay.
You've got yeah, so I sketched on a layer. Yeah, so and I'm working on I'm working on my graphic novel in this, and it's like, oh my god, the file is absolutely massive because I'm doing every single page as a layer.
Yeah.
So it's like currently I'm at page 100, and there's probably 200 layers of like the pencil sketch and then the actual ink on it, and the file is probably about 1 gigabyte by now.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, lots of layers, always layers. And yeah, this is my sneak peek at inking.
So yeah, you said that this is usually a really fast process for you. Um, would you say like for the comics that you post on Instagram every day, what's the average time that you spend on them?
The average time is probably, I'd say, for the color ones, because some days even I get a little bit lazy and just do black and white. For the color ones, it's probably about an hour. For the black and white ones, it could be anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes, or a
Yeah.
bit more if it's a bit more complicated. But yeah, it's usually I probably spend about an hour every day drawing. Um, to maybe sometimes to my clients' chagrin when they need stuff turned around quickly. And it's like, well, no, Luke has to do an hour of drawing beforehand. But yeah, it's just kind of my daily warm up. An hour of loosening up, making sure everything's working, and I would really recommend it to anybody else that can spare the time. Spend 15, 20 minutes, an hour every morning just drawing, morning, afternoon, night, whenever fits into your schedule. But yeah, it's a great warm up is to just kind of do something for yourself. Um, it puts the fun back in drawing.
Yeah. Maybe this month you can draw with us while you watch some creativity camp webinars. Bring your journal and you can draw with us every, I think it's every Wednesday, no, every Tuesday and Thursday. I'm not sure. I'm going to ask my colleague Ebony to correct me if I'm wrong. But we have two webinars every week until the end of the month. So please join us. We're about to wrap up. I want to thank Luke for spending so much time answering our questions. I want to thank my team for helping me put this event together.
And
And
thank you, Elizabeth, for hosting this, and thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun. So it's always harder than I expect to talk and draw at the same time, but here we are.
it is, and you did wonderfully. And I had a lot of questions. I usually save questions for the end, but I know that you like to chat.
Yeah, I love to chat, and there were some good questions. I
There were
thank you
some
so
great
much for
questions. Thank you
asking.
to everyone who joined us. We're posting here in the chat the link for Creativity Camp, where you can see our classes that are indeed every Tuesday and Thursday at 4:30. And one of the products mentioned in this webinar was a Wacom Moving, our newest product launch. Please go check it out. It's wonderful.
Yeah, even I'm convinced. I'm absolutely going to test out the.
You need to test it out, Luke.
I'm excited about it.
And I'm going to be sharing here with you guys the last screen so that you guys can take advantage of our summer savings this back to school season. With that code, you get a 50% discount at the Wacom eStore. So please make note of it. There you have it, guys. Thank you so much, Luke. It is 6 p.m. We are going to wrap up this lovely webinar. Thanks to everyone who joined us. Thank you to my team. And thank you, Luke. We'll see you next time. You've been wonderful.
All right, see you guys. Thanks a lot.